Thus, France has named its fifth prime minister in 2 years. President Emmanuel Macron tapping the current minister of Armed Forces, Sébastien Lecornu, to now lead the country just hours after the toppled PM Francois Bayrou handed in his resignation today following his ouster in a confidence vote on Monday. Bayrou's successor is unlikely to solve the turmoil and could face the very same fate. Well, let's cross over to Rome and speak to Thibault Muzergues, who is a political director at the Shared Ground think tank. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme, Thibault. Of course, we were expecting a prime minister to come in the coming days. It's come today. We know that Sébastien Lecornu's name was flying around. For you, do you think he's going to be able to handle what is a massive job now ahead of him?
First of all, thanks for having me. And it's not a problem of the person or the competence. I mean, Mr. Lecornu is obviously a very smart individual and very competent, and he politically is also politically savvy, being himself a politician. But the problem is that his nomination in nature is pretty much the same as that of Francois Bayrou, and what we're looking right now is a sort of closing down even of the Élysée presidency, because basically, I mean, he was chosen because he will do what the Élysée not necessarily will tell him to do, but he will do what the Élysée's agenda is. And this is a problem because we are in a National Assembly which still has the powers to fire the Prime Minister, a National Assembly that is split three ways. And right now, if you want to have a majority, you need to have two of the three, or at least a part of one big core and a part of the other family. And right now, I do not see, unfortunately, I don't see Mr. Lecornu. He will try. He might succeed for a while, but he will not. I really do not see him able to do that in the very long term. Maybe we'll have a budget. Maybe we won't have a budget. But it would be surprising if Mr. Lecornu survives as prime minister more than a year, and it might be a matter of a couple of months before we find ourselves in the same situation as today.
Well, Thibault, as you mentioned there, Lecornu could very much face the same fate that his predecessors have faced. This is the result that many parties in the National Assembly were not calling for. They were trying to avoid having a new prime minister come along. The far-right National Rally was calling for fresh elections, so was the Socialist Party. Tell us how the country will now move forward. How will those parties look to navigate this situation now?
Well, first of all, let's be clear about one thing. The France Insoumise and the Rassemblement National were calling for early elections because that was the posture to have, right? They're not necessarily serious about that. The Rassemblement National obviously has potentially something to win out of this, because they could replay the game of last time, probably without or with a cordon sanitaire, with a Republican front that will be likely weaker, and therefore they can gain more MPs. But otherwise, I mean, nobody really has. I mean, it's a period of crisis for France right now, and nobody really has an interest in having new elections. Also, another thing is that everybody's looking not at the prime minister or what this year can hold or what next year can hold, but everybody's looking at 2027 and the next presidential election. So that's something that we need to take into account, and that might be the only way for the new prime minister to stay in his post for a long time. So I mean, right now it's really a very challenging time to be prime minister in France, basically.
He definitely has a very big task ahead of him. Let's talk about Emmanuel Macron in all of this. Talk to us about what his thinking was in choosing Lecornu.
Well, he has lost an ally in Francois Bayrou, and his thinking is that maybe if he gets someone that he can trust, he will carry the day, and he will do the right things and manage to be the go-between between Emmanuel Macron on the one hand and Parliament on the other. I'm not sure the calculation is a good one. I mean, no offense to Mr. Lecornu's obviously big talents as a politician and as a technician, as well as Minister of the Armies. But this is I think this is the he's thinking, I think he wants to save the idea of the en même temps, right? That he can be both left and right. And the problem is that the left and the right are back now in the political debate. The political debate is once again articulating itself on the left and on the right. And the only people who seem not to have gotten the memo are sitting in the Élysée, and that's a problem.
Let's look at the big stumbling block that, Lecornu could face, the budget. That is why his predecessor fell. Francois Bayrou wanted to carry out massive spending cuts. How do you think Sébastien Lecornu will now look to navigate that?
I will probably go back to the cuts because they're necessary. There's just no other way. But he will probably avoid cutting the 2 holidays that were promised by Mr. Bayrou, which was really a big rallying cry for the opposition. He will try to look at ways to save money here and there. It probably means cuts for the ministries, cuts for local government, cuts for things like foreign aid, which is a bit of a shame, but the cuts need to be found, and the cuts need to be found where it's not going to be too much of a problem politically. So he's going to crunch the numbers and try to find one in which, one solution in which the budget can be passed without too much of a problem. But if you're looking for something revolutionary, it's just not going to be possible because the parliament will just not allow it, at least as long as there's not a coalition of center plus far right or center plus left and far left. And neither actor, nobody wants that, actually. This is also the problem. Nobody in parliament is ready to go for this coalition, basically.
Well, we have to see what the next few days have to hold. Thibault, great to get your reaction to this piece of breaking news. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.